Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a special webinar hosted by CARFAX about auto theft and fraud, big issues that we've all been dealing with. And our presenter today is Josh. Josh has been with CARFAX for about 5 years, and for the past 3 years, he's been the lead for customer experience on the customer experience team, training, providing development and support for all of the team members. And he's going to be sharing with us today the voice of the customer, discussions on internal, external topics of vehicle theft, VIN cloning, and automotive fraud. He's going to help us spot signs of these activities and give us the steps necessary to resolve concerns. Without further ado, I will hand over the reins and welcome Josh.
Thanks, Liz, and thank you everybody for joining today. I know this is a top of mind topic for everybody, and also one that can get a little bit emotional and charged at times. And so we're happy to have the chance to kind of walk through it a little bit, give you some idea of how to spot some signs of this prior to acquisition, and steps you can take through us for support with these issues. And with that, we'll kind of jump into it. So we do have a presentation available, and I'll share that with you all right now. There we go. All right. We are going to look at the current state of auto theft and fraud in Canada. We will talk about some auto fraud basics, how to spot fraud with some real examples, including some snippets from CARFAX Canada vehicle history reports, and what this does mean for you and your customers and ways to address it or spot it. So some of the key trends that we are seeing right now are the revinning of vehicles, so either through actually replacing the VIN plate with a different VIN or using a legitimate VIN to create paper and fake VINs for purposes of insurance and financial fraud, auto theft itself, vehicle registration inconsistencies as a result of this type of behavior, and also vehicle history manipulation. So again, as a vehicle history reporting service, we are using the VIN. And unfortunately, when the VIN has been compromised, that can create some manipulation of the true vehicle's history as well. So in terms of the auto theft right now, in 2002, more than 105,000 vehicles were stolen in Canada, and private insurance companies did pay out about $1.2 billion as a result of that. We are also seeing that in 2023, it was 1.5 billion, so it continues to increase, and that's actually up 254% since 2018. So it is becoming more and more of a significant issue. And internally, we've seen a similar trend as well, and we are seeing, since 2020, 30% increase in clone VIN related investigations as well. In 2023, over 13,000 vehicle history reports were showing as actively declared stolen for vehicles in Canada. And in 2023, that worked out to about 1.5 vehicles stolen each hour in the country. So we do know that the importance of stolen status has increased. In a recent survey, majority of our respondents did note that they are concerned about whether or not a vehicle they're looking to purchase is currently stolen, has previously been stolen, and that 17% of buyers have been a victim of auto theft themselves, or at least know somebody else who has been, just within the last 12 months alone. So that's a pretty significant chunk of the population. And the importance of this has increased. It is now the #2 thing that customers are looking for beyond a previous accident information. Their secondary focus is whether or not the vehicle has prior theft history, or more importantly, active theft history for the vehicle. So buyers will be extra motivated to confirm that the vehicle's stolen status or that the VIN has been unaltered, this has increased year over year. I don't have where we were at, say, last year or the year before, but to see it at 70%, I know that's definitely higher than maybe in years past from my experience as well. But getting this information through a vehicle history report or other product, noting that the vehicle is not actively declared stolen, definitely getting that out in front of them in advance as part of that purchase process really helps them breathe easier through the rest of the process. So, making sure that they're aware of that in advance really starts those conversations off the right way. So we will take a look at some of the auto fraud basics that'll be important to know. Obviously, it is tied to the VIN, and so the VIN is the unique identification number for each vehicle, basically its own unique fingerprint, identifying it as that specific vehicle. And so it will contain information like the country of assembly, manufacturer, year, make, model, and things of that nature, and that should be unique for every vehicle. So with VIN cloning, it is the practice of using the VIN from a legally registered and owned vehicle, and then taking that and putting it onto another vehicle, hide the identity of a stolen or previously salvaged vehicle in an effort to legitimize or clean up the vehicle's brand or title. So in terms of how VIN cloning happens, a lot of different ways, but at the end of the day, it's a stolen vehicle with a counterfeit VIN. They are taking the VIN from a totaled, exported, or out-of-province vehicle, and in some cases, they might just walk through a parking lot, a dealer's lot, or even online listings, and they're just scanning, looking for VINs, looking at vehicles that are going to be a high priority for them, make them some money, and then basically start to create themselves some shopping lists of vehicles to steal that they can apply those VINs to. And they will do that with comparables. So, if they're looking to steal or have already stolen, 2022 Ram 1500, blue in color, that's exactly what they're looking for in those parking lots, online listings, and grabbing the VINs of those vehicles here in Canada and applying them elsewhere. So VIN cloning is on the rise. Since 2019, we have seen a 64% increase in cloned VIN investigations. I've had the unfortunate responsibility of participating in many of those investigations or talking to many of dealer customers, consumer customers, insurance companies about these situations when they are present. They are typically pretty heated and emotional conversations, and we completely understand why. We also see that it is rising, and unfortunately, this is a crime, and as a result, different people will pay the price, whether that's the consumer themselves, yourselves as dealers who may take these vehicles in, the buyers of the vehicles, insurance companies, lenders, etc. So it can cause a lot of downstream problems. It can do things like cause problems with vehicle safety, cause concerns with resale values of the vehicle, and then also potential legal or financial issues for purchasers or owners of these vehicles. And in some cases, the rightful vehicle might be the one that gets repossessed, and any sort of negative history associated with it could unfortunately become the responsibility of the rightful vehicle's owner, because they can't find the other vehicle, and everybody wants to resolve it in some way and hold somebody accountable. So that's why this is such an important topic to be aware of and try and avoid wherever possible. Fake VIN is a little bit different. So as opposed to taking a legitimate VIN, putting it onto another vehicle, the decode of a VIN typically happens within those kind of first 9 to 11 digits of the VIN. So what criminals have started to do is recognize that a VIN can be decoded as long as you have the right structure, and then changing the sequential serial number aspect of the VIN by 1 or 2 digits here and there. And they do that so that way it'll decode on vehicle history reporting services or other, and make it look like it is a legitimate, again, let's say 2022 Ram, when in fact it is not, and it's not that vehicle at all. And so they'll do that to kind of create those paper trails and start to legitimize the vehicle in an effort to start to obtain insurance, total the vehicle, get the payout, or start getting lending, financing, things like that for a vehicle that really truly does not exist. So some ways to spot potential fraud. Looking for signs of VIN cloning, for example, would be finding signs of gaps, delayed or missing vehicle registration information, dual or concurrent registrations happening pretty much at the exact same time in different jurisdictions, multiple registrations, again, in different locations in a short period of time, history in cities that, vehicle owners saying they've never been to, and also missing history. So little to no history whatsoever. Those are some of the things to be on the lookout for, and we'll share some examples of that shortly. But when you start to see a vehicle in Ontario, a week later, it's now being titled in Louisiana, a month after that, titled in Mississippi or damaged in Mississippi, that's a sign that something is up and it's time to take some extra steps to do your due diligence. So a potential clone VIN, like I said, and some examples of this, registered in Ontario, January of 2019, and then the following day being registered and titled in Louisiana. And then just a few months later, we now start to see signs of it also being in Mississippi as being reported in an accident, and yet it's getting its service history in Sudbury. So this would be something that we would see on our side when somebody reaches out and immediately would start to raise some flags for us that something's up and we need to start looking into this. And again, same thing, jumping around between Canada and the US in a short period of time. You'll hear it as soon as you run the report on your customer's car. They're going to immediately say, I've never been to Louisiana. I've never been to Mississippi. That's a sign it's time to pause and maybe reach out and have us take a look into it for you. Again, concurrent registrations, different jurisdictions. While we are seeing this mainly with Canadian vehicles getting titled or damaged, et cetera, in the States, it does happen in Canada as well. And so you will have people also saying, well, I've never been to Manitoba. I'm an Ontario resident. How did this happen? This again would be a sign that maybe the VIN has been compromised and is actually now being used within Canada elsewhere. When we do an investigation with our data sources, so somebody brings this to our attention, we go through the proper investigative processes. If we are able to verify with the state that issued the title that upon further review by them, that they have now deemed any documentation or information given to them in an effort to gain the title ends up being fraudulent, they will 9 out of 10 times tell us that, yeah, that's what's happened, and we now know we're dealing with a cloned VIN. And when that happens, our data sources do include a cloned VIN alert in the detailed history of the vehicle history report. We've seen instances where this has already been investigated. Somebody still brings the vehicle to another retailer in an effort to trade it in there, and that gets missed. So we, would recommend to always look through the entirety of the report. If you see something like a cloned VIN alert, noting that a title has been issued fraudulently for the vehicle, for a different vehicle, reach out to us right away, and we can work with yourself and or the customer in an effort to see if there's been some resolution in place that we're just not aware of, and if so, work towards cleaning it up or saying, no, this still hasn't been resolved and it's probably time to put a pause on any deals. Fake VINs present a little bit differently. So instead of jumping all over the place, jurisdiction to jurisdiction, city to city, typically what we'll see with a fake VIN is a lot of missing history. So if there are gaps in information on a report and that seems suspicious to you, if the seller is saying something that doesn't match what the report is showing, again, probably time to take a quick pause, reach out to us, and ensure that we can get the chance to take a look at it. And we'll look at what that looks like here. Sometimes this is just simply a typo, and we might be able to identify that very quickly, get everybody, moving again by making that correction. But in some cases, we may see, something is clearly up here. And one of the biggest identifiers of that is either no history, or alternatively, in this example, we've got a 2017 Ram 1500, but the first registration and ownership of this vehicle was not until 2019. It would be very rare that model would not, be picked up by somebody within 2 years, and so it probably should have been registered long before then. So again, significant delays in ownership, registration versus the model year, probably an indicator that somebody has created this VIN a little bit later and then started using that VIN to register a stolen vehicle or, again, paper vehicle. So when it does come to automotive theft and fraud, CARFAX Canada vehicle history reports, they do help our customers by identifying some of these critical issues before they purchase a vehicle. We'll be looking for things like VIN cloning, VIN tampering, stolen vehicles through actively stolen vehicle checks and other inaccuracies in vehicle data. And in terms of protecting yourself, we will recommend always comparing the VIN on the physical vehicle to the documentation the customer's provided to you, especially with these fake VINs. One of the key things we're seeing is they're going to off-brand stores. So they're going to Independence, or they're taking a Ford and they're going to Hyundai to trade it in after creating this fake VIN. So in many cases, we may find just a quick check of, say, the Ford recall site will tell us that's not a legitimate VIN that's been issued by Ford. That would be another way to kind of flag that immediately, as when a customer brings an off-make vehicle to your retail location. Also want to make sure that the seller's ID matches what's on the government issued ID or ownership documentation for that vehicle. Check for liens if there is one. Is the named debtor on there also the same name that's on their government issued ID and ownership documentation? Not just run a vehicle history report, but really go through it page by page, line by line, see if you spot anything that raises any flags. Let your customers know that you see something that's raised a flag, ask them about it. And ultimately, if you see something that's really off and you don't want to put the customer on the spot, or you really start to think something's up, probably time to maybe move away from that and see if you can engage with local law enforcement to see if they can advise further and if they need to take any action there to support you as well. Some ways to kind of help your customers. Again, provide the history, inform customers. So, right up front, give them the full history report, let them take a look, and they can see what's going on and flag any concerns for you that they may have seen. And although it's a little bit of a lower concern for many customers right now, they're not indicating that anti-theft features on newer vehicles are really a primary concern for them. But the fact that auto theft and stolen vehicle status is really important to them, starting to highlight that OEMs continue to make improvements, and that even within the same year, make, model line, certain trim packages might have more advanced anti-theft features, moving them towards that and highlighting the importance of that in this day and age. Reiterating to them, keeping their key fobs away from the doors, set up vehicle tracking, use things like the club, etc. All these types of things in an effort to help educate them and keep them safe post-purchase as well. So that's kind of the extent of the presentation. Hopefully that's provided some value to you, and I'm sure for many of you, the biggest piece will be the opportunity to ask some questions, get some answers, and I'm happy to field some of those at this time.
Thank you, Josh. That was lots of information. I'm sure everyone's just digesting. If anyone's unfamiliar with the Teams webinar, the Q&A is just at the top bar of your screen there. You can go ahead and throw in questions there. Or like I said, once you receive a recording of the webinar, we'll have contact information there as well. If you think of anything a little bit later on.
And on our side of things, if there are questions, we do invite you to contact us through support.carfax.ca. General questions, please choose the contact us option. But if you are seeing signs of this type of history and need us to look into that, you can also use the report a concern option, or alternatively during support hours, you can also call in and we can take a look at it and start talking to you about it immediately, and if need be, trigger the right response. But those would be three different ways to get in touch with us.
I have a question coming in that says, what's the number one mistake dealers make resulting in theft issues? I guess,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Just kind of what things can we do a little bit better?
In terms of not taking in a vehicle that's already stolen, again, right, read the report in full. While we will check for actively declared stolen through the Canadian Police Information Center, other resources will also do similar types checks. The Canadian Police Information Center website is publicly accessible, and you can do online searches right there as well. So those are some steps to identify that a vehicle, in front of you may already be declared stolen. In terms of stopping vehicles from getting stolen off your lot. Continue to try and lock them down, create barriers to allow the vehicle to leave with any sort of ease. That will help prevent thieves from getting them off of your lot. So it'll be steps like that, taking additional precautions for test drives, making sure that the individual in front of you, is who they say they are before jumping in cars for test drives. But in terms of, other steps, again, line by line, we know business moves very quickly, and we want to get the customers vehicles in, get them into their new car, and send them on their way as quickly as possible. But unfortunately, we do see instances where people just look at the summary page of our report and then move forward and miss important information that could have protected them in advance, and resulted in them not taking on an actively stolen or revinned vehicle.
Perfect. Yeah, all good points. I've got a couple questions coming in. Yes, we will be sending out the presentation with the recording. If anyone's worried about that. I have a question coming in. Historically, BEV units have not been a theft target. Do you see it staying that way?
Sorry, what was the first part of that question?
Historically, BEV units have not been a theft target. Do you see it staying that way?
Hard to say. I mean, things will change, but we do know that some of the changes with OEMs and steps they're taking to protect their vehicles and create alerting, things like that, are helping to a degree. And so as they become more prevalent, it's likely that that will increase, but hopefully some of those theft measures will help keep that under control.
Excellent. This question here is saying, are you adding a tile on the report VIN clone?
We're looking at a lot of different options right now for a lot of different customer bases that will support them in this type of stuff. There is some talk right now of the registration summary tiles starting to add kind of more clear alerting that something may be up with the registration history. So again, for example, it's been cloned in the US, and if the last reported registration for that vehicle is coming out of the US, but there's a lot of Canadian history and no identifiers the vehicle was legitimately exported, there is some talk of alerting showing up on those tiles. Yeah.
Excellent.
And just to follow up on that, I will say it's very, very hard, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to start accusing people of things where these may be legitimate U.S. histories or title histories or other. And so, we also have to be cautious with the fact that, alerting people to something that may not be actually concerning, and kind of weeding through how to pinpoint which is which can be very, very difficult. And as a result, that has been a challenge over time, but it's something, again, we continue to work with partners, OEMs, insurance companies, etc., all in an effort to try and make that more clear and apparent for everybody on the VHR product itself.
Yes, yeah, definitely a sensitive subject.
these are very heated conversations, and we understand why. There's a lot of detriment to dealers, to consumers, and vehicle owners. But at the end of the day, to potentially falsely call that out, right? I can understand somebody getting incredibly upset about that, but I can say my experience thus far is pretty much any case that comes forward, we are typically able to verify that yes, some sort of cloning or other negative behaviors at play here, and um, you know so I would say, again, if you see something that doesn't seem right, something's probably up, and it's best to reach out to us.
And Josh, what's the average response time for just the general chat?
So phone pretty quick. We don't have a lot of delays right now in our call volume. Right now we are experiencing a higher than normal volume of requests, and so stuff coming through our support center can be delayed. More importantly, though, is while initially viewing the requests might be a little bit behind at this time, it's also important to get it out there as soon as possible, because what I can say is the investigative process, and our investigations team will send that as an update, letting people know we're looking into it. That's typically a minimum of 6+ weeks, right? As we're dealing with governments, we're dealing with others, a lot of hoops to jump through. As a result of that, I've had clone VIN investigations where we don't have a response from the state or others for upwards of like 12, 20, 25 weeks. I've had some that are
Wow.
2-3 years. Yeah, and it's state by state. Everybody does things differently. Some states might get back to us very, very, very quickly. Others will get back to us after a long time, and they might not even say, hey, we've confirmed this is fraudulent. They might just say, yeah, we issued a title. That's it. And so it's a lengthy process, and that's why it's so important to catch it before we, acquire a unit. Is you don't want to be stuck with that and then, have upwards of a year of not being able to turn that unit, right? So.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Okay. If anyone else has any additional questions, please submit them now. But again, we have, I'll send out contact information. You can get in touch with Josh's team. Again, we'll send out the recording and a copy of the presentation. So you guys should have all the information that we've gotten today at your fingertips. Thank you again, Josh. Thank you, CARFAX, for sharing this information with us, for helping us, stay educated and stay in front of this, hopefully, going forward.
Thanks for having me, and thank you everybody for joining today. This is great.
All right. Take care, everyone.